Hi everyone, talking about some Jimmie River isms. I just released a course on his playing, kind of what I've interpreted from the famous Brisbane Bop album. And while I want to tonight spend some time talking about the blues with some major and minor blues and how you can mix those two together, I want to take a second to kind of talk about the whole thing of the course. So really it's all about hearing changes, and that's the big thing I learned from that album is that guy could play the blues and he could play Western swing, and he could do a lot of pentatonic stuff, but as you know, in addition to that, he could also really outline the changes that were going by, and he did that in such a really, I think, simple but effective way, and targeting certain tones, and simply just moving chord shapes down the neck, and he just made it sound really, really great and swing really hard. So that's kind of like the whole purpose of that course, is to really identify those common areas that he would do and some of the common harmonies that he would play into that. But what I thought I'd do is kind of go before that and talk more about the use of blues in his playing and the use of combining major and minor. And kind of where I think that came from listening, from what I've heard in records that he listened to, and just kind of historically, I guess. So from what I gather is, you know, he was a huge Barney Kessel and Charlie Christian fan, right? And if you listen to Charlie Christian, a lot of his blues playing, or the majority of his blues playing is fairly major sounding. You know, he listened to a lot of Lester Young, and it was a lot of stuff that was kind of that. You know, he would throw some leads in there, some leading tones in there to get to transfer between chords, but it was very major sounding. You know, it had a lot of that kind of stuff. So I think, you know, he gets a lot of those Charlie Christianisms, the Lester Young stuff, the major sound from those guys. And you can definitely hear it. I mean, he has a couple of instances on that album where he plays Charlie Christian solos verbatim, which is pretty awesome. So there's that to it. And so going into listening to Brisbane Bop, I heard all of those, that kind of sound, right? And then I also heard the whole that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, that's a little different than Charlie Christian, who I listened to before. So after listening to a bunch of Jimmie Rivers, I discovered Charlie Parker. And I don't know how I didn't listen to him before that. But Charlie's whole thing was, yes, he did play major, you know, blues licks, or major-ish blues licks, however you want to say it. But typically he took the whole major idea that was really prevalent in the early, you know, swing era of, right? And just moved it up a minor third. And that's, I mean, that might be obvious to you, but that blew my mind. I was like, oh, wow, cool. So I can basically take a lot of the same ideas and kind of fingerings and patterns and rhythms and stuff that I'm used to and play between the two. So, if you listen to Brisbane Bop, you will hear him over, you know, we're just going to talk about, oh, cool. Glad you're screen recording it. You can hear him talk about, play, you know, if we're playing the first 4 or 2 bars of the blues, right? So if we're in B flat, you know, we've got B flat to E flat. And in some instances, you can hear him play over that B flat. He'll play just major. So he might go 1, 2, 3. And then when he gets to the minor, or to the E flat, he would play minor. All right, and then when he gets back to the B flat, so let me do that without talking real quick. So to use major versus minor, we've got something like that, or so I thought that was like, oh, that's a pretty cool, effective way of using it instead of just going straight into your minor blues, right? Instead of just going. All right, that's cool, that works, but I think if you want to get it more in the swing direction and that early bebop kind of use of the blues, I think bouncing between the two is really nice, especially if you like dedicate one chord for that sound and another chord for, you know, the other sound. So there's that approach. And so what I would do is I would find all those main areas that you play the blues out of and go, okay, where's the major, where's the minor? So there's this, right? You've got all major, then move it up a minor third. You've got all minor. Now let's take it up here. So this is our B flat chord. We've got our major pentatonic up here, right? Then put that up a minor third, right? And you have that. So if you're playing the blues, you know, and that's really nice. One chord for one thing, the other chord for another thing. So I think that's kind of, you know, ground zero for this. Take it from there. The next thing is dancing between the two. And I've got a couple of licks that I think are really classic Jimmie stuff that I'll show you. That I kind of start the course, my Jimmie Rivers course off with, and it's like these are the kind of the things that he uses. So for example, if we're playing, let's say, you know, this is our B flat, and we're going to start off with a minor idea. One you know really well, this thing. Right? That's fitting all over that B flat 7. Now, when you get to the E flat chord, what I would do, instead of playing, you know, more minor, I would highlight some of the notes that are straight in that chord. Don't think blues scale, don't think pentatonics or anything like that. Think of the chord itself. So for me, the big one is G. So you got a G here and a G here. So if I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4. So now it sounds like you're playing a change to me instead of just going one thing to another. So if you're playing up the blues, and then I'm going to do a triplet, right? Because I'm thinking, there's my E flat chord. Coming back down, then back up. Or back. And I think that doing that and really targeting this G note for instance, or what would be the third of the E flat chord, I think that really is nice to spell out the change. It sounds like you're spelling out and you're really aware of, oh, this is when that chord's happening. And I think when I first listened to this record, and you know, I listened to B.B. King, and he's a great example of that before that. And I could hear that in B.B. King's playing, for instance, but when it came into more of a swing jazz context, I think that's a big thing for Jimmie's sound is he would hit those chord tones. He would hit those things that are part of the chord to make it sound like he was, you know, going between two and playing through the changes rather than on them. So that's something to explore. So if you've got, again, just take that cool little blues lick we all know and love a lot and go, and then go up to the G somehow. And that could be something you do. Now, the next thing I would want to talk about from that is coming back into the B flat chord, right? So that would cover the first 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 bars of the blues. Now, when you're coming back into the B flat, you want to signify that you're coming back into the B flat. So the big thing there to do is play this major third, this D note, because we just went, right? We played the minor third. But now we want to signify that we're coming back to the B flat, so get that major third in there. So you might go, and that shows, oh, I'm playing the change. I'm aware of where I am in the chords. So you might go, something of that, and that would, you know, get us down to the E flat for the longer bars. So again, maybe any of that. Mess around with kind of what your fingers want to do and try and hear it in your head too. So that would be targeting that D right there, the major third. Now in all of this, I've also been playing off of my C note here over that E flat chord, right? The C is the sixth of E flat. And that's just a, you know, it's a cool sound against, right? If you're playing, there's your E flat 7, there's your 13 or 6 with a 9 in there too. So what you can do is put that C in the blues with it too. So you might go, right? And I just do a little, so that's just bouncing between the flat 7 of E flat, and then sliding back up. Mess around with the timing of it. Anything like that. And I think, again, that shows that you know where you are in the changes, you've got more to work with. So thus far, what we've got, you know, our staple blues ideas. I've talked about when you're going to the 4 chord, target the third of the chord, right? The G in this instance, to really show that I know I'm on the 4 chord kind of thing. We talked about coming back into the B flat chord or the 1 chord. You target the third of that chord again. And, you know, you don't always have to do this, but this is just if you want to really nail the change or show that you know the change kind of thing. All right. The next thing we talked about was bouncing off the 6 and the flat 7 when you're on the 4 chord. And that's something I probably do too much. That kind of thing. The next thing we can talk about is playing, and this is kind of more erring on the Charlie Christian side of things, and granted Jimmie did it a lot too, but if you're playing out of the B flat or playing on the 1 chord, targeting that G, right? Right, and that's kind of that Charlie Christian, Lester Young, early swing era sound. That's more major sounding. That kind of thing. So I think that would be a cool thing to explore. You know, you've got we've got how many notes? How many unique notes? 1, 2, really 3 notes on top of your blues stuff you already know and your triads you already know. So mess around with that. I'll jam a few things here for a second. And if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to comment. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. I'll do a major thing over the 1 chord and a more minor thing over the 4 chord. So 1, 2, 3. Right, so that's that. Let's do something else. Let's do something here on the higher octave. 1, 2, 3. So that's, you know, assigning major and minor pentatonic to each chord. Now the next thing we can do is dance between the two and apply them. So both. So now we can go 1, 2, 3. So that's an example that you could do there. Another one, let's do one more. 1, 2, 3. Right. So those are some ideas. I would shed all that stuff and get really comfortable with it. Find it in a couple different areas. That was just one. But I think that's kind of a good place to start, the middle ground of the neck. Then you can move it up and down. And so segueing back into kind of the course stuff, if you're now just joining, I mentioned some stuff at the beginning. I don't necessarily cover all of this in the course. I kind of give a little overview of it at the beginning. I kind of shrink it down to, I think there's 3 main areas that Jimmie Rivers plays out of. We played around with a little bit of the first one right here. This kind of triad, this triad, and this triad. So I cover those, and then I cover how, you can play major and minor pentatonics around them. And I apply all of those into some staple Jimmie Rivers licks.